Alrighty. Let's give people a few minutes to join in here. So I'm just going to start. We're continuing to do our remote scanning, remote sessions. Hi, Monica. I'm glad you're here. Please pop in. I'm going to be mentioning you later too. And so if you have anything to add, please just chat on in so we can let everyone know what you're saying too. We are continuing to do the remote scans and having supplement pickup for anyone who's interested. I also am taking some acupuncture appointments again. So for anyone who needs especially a little extra emotional support right now, the acupuncture is so great at helping to allow the energy to flow and help us release some of that tension that's being created from the stress of everything that's going on right now. I feel like everyone could use some cupping right now. And so if that's something that you're interested in, let us know. We're still taking limited appointments throughout the day, but we're trying to get everybody in who needs to get in. But for anyone who's still nervous, we're still doing all of the remote sessions. Melissa is still doing the Akashic Records remotely. Monica is doing her essential oils remotely and long distance Reiki, and incorporating any essential oils that you might need, again, for pickup, or we can set up some delivery too if that's something that works better for you as well. So please let us know if there's any ways that we can help you. Hey, Dad. I'm loving these crystals that Melissa just gave me right now. And it's like, right now, it's like whatever makes you feel good and reminds you of those things that keep you calm. It's been a pretty rough day with patients today, and it's not just the physical. A lot of it is the emotional, which in Chinese medicine is one and the same. And whenever we're looking at the body as an energetic body, the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual are all one. And we're looking at what is the best way to help the body come into balance. And I feel that sometimes with Western medicine, whenever something seems to not go in just the physical body realm, then all of a sudden it's, oh, that's a psychological thing and we can't help you with that. And the truth is it's all connected. It's just either affecting us more in the physical body, or it's affecting us more in the emotional body, or it's affecting us more in the spiritual body. And either way, it doesn't matter because they all present themselves in different ways. So we can very much have an emotional issue that is causing us to have stomach pain or elbow pain or headaches. It's just trying to find the best means to resolve that issue that's going on. So the reason for today's class is I was completely inspired by a conversation that we were having, and I'm gonna let you go ahead and just start out with how that started.
Yeah.
Because as soon as Melissa told this to me, it just got my mind racing and going, and I felt this was something that we really need to share with everyone out there.
So a couple months ago, I was sitting on my balcony, and my wind chimes, they were tangled. The wind chimes, it's got the chimes straight across, and then two of the, I don't know what those are called on the chimes, those parts that make the music, they were tangled. There's two of them, and they were tangled. So I was sitting on my balcony, and I was like, okay, I want to untangle these without touching them. So I asked the wind I remembered The Alchemist, and in the story of The Alchemist, he talks at the end of it. He talks to the wind and asks to be the wind to take him where he needs to go. So I was like, okay, I'll try that, and I asked the wind, and a couple seconds later, wind came and untangled him, and I was like, oh, cool, that's awesome. And then I never tried it again until recently. And when I tried it again, I was like, I can, I did it the first time, so it's got to happen this time. So I sat out there for about 20 minutes and I was just looking at the wind chimes like, come on, untangle. I've done this before. Do it again. Come on. I'm not going inside until this is done, is what I said to the wind. And I remember sitting out there and I felt the resistance. And I was like, okay, I have to leave right now because I have to go back inside. I have to go about my day. I'm not going to sit out here for 3 hours. But before I went in, I was like, the next time that I see these wind chimes, I want to see them untangled. I don't have to be a part of it. I just want to know that the wind is listening, the universe is listening. So I went in, I closed my balcony door, and I looked out immediately, to see if, my presence was what was stopping it. So I closed the door, looked out, nothing happened. I left for maybe 5, 10 minutes, and I happened to walk by the door again. And I had at that point I was already like, all right, whatever. And I looked out the door, and the wind chimes were untangled. And in that, we talked about co-creation. And the first time I asked, it was the things we talked about were beginner's luck. So the first time I asked, I was like, sure, we'll try it. What's the harm in playing with the universe? And the second time I had expectation. I had resistance because of the way that it happened the first time, and the resistance in me was expectation of myself. So I thought, I have to do this. I have to be the one to untangle these wind chimes with just asking. And it didn't happen that way. And in co-creation, we often find that's the case. First, it's easy, and then we allow the expectation, the walls to go back up because of that.
So
Yeah.
even with like beginner's luck, that's what we do. We
Mhm.
were like I remember the first time I played Texas Hold'em with my husband's family, and I was like, okay, I didn't know all the rules, I didn't know how to play, but I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. This is fun. And what ended up happening was I ended up winning. I beat the guy who always won. And so since that, if I ever play with my husband's family, they're all like, oh, watch out for her. And it really was, I came from a place of just completely like, okay, I'm just going to go have fun and let's see what happens here. And when we do that, I already knew that I don't know how to play this game. I don't know if I can do this, but I'm going to go ahead and try anyway. And when we do that, we allow this other energy to be a part of our playing. So Melissa talks all the time about just play with it, play with the energy, have fun, use your imagination. Because when you start doing all of that, it's crazy the stuff that happens. Once you get excited about something, once you start imagining, like, well, what if I actually won? What if all of this went really well? We get outside of ourselves and we just allow our one thought of, what if I won this right now, to be the fuel for our intention. The minute that we start thinking, so then afterwards, when I have the expectations that now I am supposed to be really good at this because I won, and now everyone's thinking, oh, Ronica really knows what she's doing out there. Now I'm thinking, oh crap, I just got lucky. I can't do this again unless I go back into it with the same thing. Like, okay, let's play again. Let's see what happens. The minute that we start thinking, it was me, I did this all by myself, and now I have to do it again all by myself, that's when we're going to get stuck. That is pride. And so there's nothing wrong with being proud of yourself. The way it becomes a problem is if you think you're alone in everything that you do, that you neglect that the universe is here with you. And that is the whole topic of co-creation, is once you invite and allow is so important. Once you find yourself deserving of whatever it is you're asking for, and allow the universe to help you attain what it is that you're asking for. And again, if it can be all out of fun and no pressure on you, then these doors seem to open magically. And so one of the things that we're trying to do here is to look at, because the minute you start thinking, I have to do this, they're expecting this of me. If I can't do this, now people are going to look at me and be like, she never could do that anyway. Now, all these thoughts that start popping in the head are my own fears. No one else is probably thinking what I'm thinking they're thinking of me, but I'm thinking it. So I think everyone looking at me is thinking exactly that same thing, which is not true, but then that gets us stuck. So now, if this has been my fear all along, where, well, you thought you could do this, but you really can't, now I'm accidentally allowing that information to be a part of my creation. And I stopped allowing the universe to help and support me, because instead of just saying, I'm going to go on this ride and see what happens and just have fun with it, now I have all of these bad thoughts, and all that's going to do is recreate what I have already created a million times already in my life. Failure, not smart enough, not good enough. And that is what then I walk into again. And so right now we are stuck in a lot of fear, which is limiting our way of finding a new way out of a situation that we've seen created over and over again. So we're holding on to those instances or experiences in our life that have already proven to us, see, that's what happens. You can't do this. You don't deserve this. And we'll start to create that again. We're losing that whole beginner's luck of just like, well, let's roll the dice and see what happens.
Yeah, and in that, before I went back out and did that with the wind chime, I forgot to tell you this part. I dropped something on the floor and I was like, I could just use the force. And then I sat there for like 5 minutes and I was like, I can't do this. I need to go outside. And I left, and then I was like, well, I could do this. I've done it before. And part of my limiting beliefs are that I can do it once, but I can't do it again. So I'll do things once, succeed, and then say, well, I did it. So that's enough for me because of my fear of failure.
And so right now, talking with everyone, and yes, a lot of this fear is coming up, which of course it does, because whenever we are presented with a point in our life where life is asking us to change, then we have two choices here. We can either kind of jump into it and surrender and say, okay, life, take me where I need to go right now. Or we can get stuck and say, here I am again. Here I am again with this same fear. So now, do I keep reacting the same, or do I change? And change requires so much. So change requires us to let go of any belief that had kept that thing repeating. I got to figure out what that is. I have to see that it didn't serve me before. It will definitely not serve me again. And then I have to go and see, how do I change that behavior? So one of the examples I have for this is I was about 10 years old, and at that point, I was seeing a lot of ghosts in my house. And I had no idea. It wasn't like anyone in my family, like anyone who had passed away. I was just seeing random ghosts, and I was getting scared. But one of the things that scared me the most was, what if my dad dies and I don't know if he's just one of these random ghosts I'm seeing? Like, I need him to give me a code to tell me, like, no, this is me, it's dad, it's okay. And so I thought one day, and I'm like, how am I going to know? And I'm like, oh, he's got to give me a code. And so I'm like, okay, he always used to use my birthday as like a code to unlock his briefcase or whatever it was. So I'm like, 912, 912, that's my code. So I would tell my dad, I'm like, hey, dad, if you ever die, the code, so I know it's you, is 912. You got to show me those numbers. You got to write them in the dust in my room. You got to show me 912, and then I'm going to know that that's you. And he was like, okay. Because I used to wake up in the middle of the night, and he would come on down. And so I'm like, okay, dad, but if it's ever you got to give me that code, 912. And so then a couple years would go by, and I'm like, hey, dad, remember what I said? Do you remember what the code is if I ever need you? And he's like, what code? And I'm like, dad, are you kidding me? Like, I told you, like, I need you to know the code. And so I was terrified because I'm like, he's never going to remember the code. He's not going to remember the code. And so every couple of years, I would test him, and I would test him again. And I'd be like, dad, remember what the code's going to be? And he'd be like, oh, I know. I know you told me, but now I'm like, dad, how could you do that to me? I need you to know the code. And so that is the part of where we're not changing. Okay. So I had to keep questioning him. That was my idea of, like, if I can get him to remember the code, then everything will be okay. But really, what I needed to do was, once I realized that I needed this from him, all I had to do was go back to that little girl who got scared that night. And I needed to go and tell her, you know what, sweetheart? Your dad will always give you the code. You will know it's him. You will know by a song on the radio. You will know by whatever it is. You will know that that's your dad. Because I kept looking for some way for this fear to be kiboshed by testing him and testing him. What's the code? What's the code? What's the code? And in that, I got stuck and more scared because he wasn't remembering. But a lot of times we're looking for that. We're looking from someone outside of ourselves to help us feel like everything is going to be okay. But these fears within us, we're the only ones that really know how to make us feel better. So when we're going through whatever these fears are of ourselves, I had a client call today, and she realized that she was really stuck in fear, and similar, like her father had died. And I said, and so she said her biggest fear was death right now. And I said, okay, do you have any signs that your father is with you, is around you? And she's like, oh, yes, I have so many signs. When I get really sad, I hear this song on the radio. My dad loved owls, so I'll hear an owl, or I'll see something with owl, and I know that that's my dad telling me, like, I'm here, don't be afraid. And I said, so there really is a part of you that already knows death does not exist on that level, that there's nothing really to fear, because the one who is not here is still getting messages to you. And there are instances like this where we need to go back and say, like, oh, wait, yeah, I did receive my answer. I do know about this. And even though this is one of my fears, this is now what I have to do in order to calm my fear. So when I get scared in those moments, I have to ask, like, I need you to show me a sign because I'm scared. And you'll get it. But if you stay stuck in that moment of I'm afraid, we accidentally fuel that more. We forget that we can ask a question and receive more answers. And if that answer isn't good enough, ask another. Like, don't stop this communication between asking God and receiving an answer. That's when we're going to get stuck in fear and anxiety. Whatever fuels us to say, you're alone, you're alone, you're alone, that's where we're going to get stuck. Instead, ask, show me I'm not alone. Show me I'm with someone. Give me a sign. Give me an idea, whatever it is. And then just sit for a moment with that. Okay. Hi, Mom. Thank you for watching. Practicing this right now to get my business going. Yes.
Awesome.
I'm going to help you with that too. And I just have a bad memory. Oh, yeah. I know. See? What am I doing? Blaming you for your bad memory. Come on. I already know. You're going to give me the sign that I need. Okay. Another question that came up, and I'm going to let you start on this one, was, so the first thing is, our fears, they happened. Like, something really happened in our life. Hi, Dorothy.
Hi, Dorothy.
Something actually happened to make us be afraid. And so you can't just say like, oh, okay, we'll just ignore that. And actually, if we just ignore that, it gets worse. The part that we forget in all of this is whatever makes us afraid. Hi, Gracie. Is actually a part of our whole divine plan. And it is through our fears that we remember the hero that we are. And it is because I have been afraid somewhere in my life that when someone else presents that same fear, I can say with such love and conviction that you do not have to be afraid of that. So whenever we are presented with any kind of fear, it is such a growing and learning experience. And what happens is when you get to the end of that journey, you realize that you have always had the information within you. Even the experience itself was put there for you so that you could remember who you are and what that message of love and hope you were supposed to plant into this world and to give to others. And so there is whatever experience you went through, now you have this message of hope and courage for the rest of the world, and everyone's is different. That's why all of our fears are different right now, but they're all real. And they're all coming to us because we're coming to this place of something has to change. And we have this great opportunity to try this beginner's luck. Like, okay, I feel like I've never gone through this before. I don't know what to do. Let me go ahead and ask the universe to help me and see what happens. Roll the dice and see what happens. And we're at this point right now. And when I did the tarot card class, that was the last card that ended up. It was this Chariot card that was like, gosh, right now, dream big. Dream really big. Imagine whatever you want to imagine. Ask the universe to help you create what you want to create. Don't look at the things that fuel your fear. Be very careful, especially if you have this energy of the world keeps doing this, making this mistake, and this is, what we need to fight for. Fight for what you need to fight for, but do it with love and do it with compassion and really enforce this idea of change. If you get stuck or feel ever that, well, this is too difficult, this will never change, you're fueling that opposite energy on accident.
Yeah. So with that, I just thought about this. Flip the coin. Imagine you are the coin, and Pam, our massage therapist, had sent me. It was an article about duality. It's Albert Einstein's theory that for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. So if you imagine that you have a fear, then on the other side of the coin there is a strength or love, whatever you imagine as the opposite of fear. So when you're in this fear mindset, flip the coin. Flip it and see what it looks like on the opposite spectrum. And then you can learn in that. You get the perspective of the strength, of the love, and you can start asking the questions that seem too scary in fear. So when you're in fear, change is difficult. Understanding is difficult. Perception is difficult to change. But when you flip the coin and you look at it through love, you're allowing yourself the freedom of a different perspective. So, in that moment of fear, flip the coin and say, what is the opposite feeling of this? And then feel that, allow that in your being, and then ask the questions. Where did this start? Why did I feel like that, the first time? And the questions will come the more you dig into the fear, the more that you explore that. And it doesn't have to be, thanks, Hector. It doesn't have to be so scary anymore because you have this perspective that you hadn't before. And that in itself is change.
And I'll tell you one thing, like you already bring love to whatever thing that you think. So fear comes a lot from like, well, I didn't have this, or this was taken away from me, or this was never given to me, so I don't know about it. But that's all BS, okay? Because I already know that whatever you think was taken from you or never given to you, the people you love, you give that to them so completely, so passionately, so unconditionally. So if you were ever afraid of being alone, your message to the world is, you're never alone. I'm right here. I got your back. I'll be here for you. But yet your story says no one's been here for me. So how can you be there for someone else? Tell people you love, you can always count on me. If that was ever taken away from you or not given to you. All of this comes from before this experience. Your life experience had helped you realize this is something you always planned on bringing to the earth in this lifetime. And whatever that is, if you feel like, well, no one ever said they were proud of me, but yet you tell everyone, I'm so proud of you. Look at what you did. Look how good you are. All of these things, you'll see already. You're giving this. This love is so important to you that you give it to everyone that you can. And so one thing is you don't even have to do anything with this. All you have to do is see, oh my gosh, look, that just reminded me that was a part of my plan, that I said, this is what I want to bring to the world. But if you keep finding yourself in repeating situations, even though you will still keep giving that love to everyone in the world, and so as long as you exist, that you will keep creating that, you will give that love to anyone who needs it. But in your own personal life experience, if you keep seeing these things repeat, that's where you might want to do a little extra work to see, how can I stop seeing this repeat? How can I go back and look at what are the little triggers that keep getting me to believing that the world doesn't love me, or no one's there for me, or no one's proud of me? I already know you're giving that to the world. But maybe in your own personal life, you feel like you want to see some difference in there. And that's where you could do a little bit more of this inner work and start co-creating and asking the world to love you, to remind you that you're not alone, to remind you that you're worthy and deserving. And that's where I feel like right now with all of this isolation is, it's easy when we're with groups of people, and I hope we get to get back out soon, because it's so much easier to see the love that we're giving when we are with people and we are able to share and express and be their light and their hope. And when we're stuck within ourselves, that's where we see that the work on ourselves was never really completed. And it's a good time though, because it still reminds us, because if we want to be at the top of our game right now, we do have to work on this within ourselves. And it's good when other people need us or make us feel good for sharing the knowledge and the love that we have so bad that we want to give. So when other people take that and love that and they're so thankful that we said our kind words because they so needed to hear it, it's beautiful, and it makes us forget a little bit of our own heartache and fear where that got created. But right now we're in a point where it's like, can you really understand this at a heart level, that this isn't just your job to give to everyone in the world. This is your job to totally incorporate into your own being, to feel that, because we are these vessels here on earth. So all this information that we're receiving, it's so important to how we move forward. So if I can learn to love myself just a little bit more and to accept all the unconditional love that I hope everyone else feels, then all of a sudden I've raised the vibration. I have not allowed that fear to be something that is limiting or hurting. I've allowed it to show me where I need to look at to find my own courage, my own strength, my direction in this world.
Yeah. And in that, you learn so much about yourself, your genetic line, your mission, what you came here to do. It's like this, you open this Pandora's box of all the wonderful things that you are, and you are able to accept, allow, receive all of that back in kind when you look at it. Absolutely. When you understand it.
Perfect. Did I do that, or did I interrupt the what's behind the anger?
No, we didn't do that.
I think I meant to ask you and then I kept talking. Sorry. So
it's okay. So with these emotions, there's the overlaying emotion and then the underlying emotion. And I was watching Supergirl a couple of years ago, and it was Supergirl and the cameraman, Jimmy Olsen. And Jimmy Olsen is friends with Superman and Supergirl. And I don't remember the context of the episode, but she was angry about something. So he hung a car up and had her punch it like a punching bag. And he said, okay, what are you angry about? And she said, whatever she was angry about, and she punched the bag. And he said, okay, now what is the anger behind the anger? And she punched the bag again, and then she understood it. And that is how our emotions, our patterns, our fears tend to present themselves. They have like a baggie, and then if you don't open the bag, all you're carrying is the fear around. You're not opening the bag and seeing the jewels, seeing what's underneath all of the emotion, all of the limitation, the belief system. So when we ask that question, what is the emotion behind this emotion? We dive deeper into where it was created, and we can start there. You can start in your life. If somebody cuts you off while you're driving and you get really upset, what's behind that? Why did that upset you so much? And every time these seemingly insignificant events present themselves to you in your life, there is significance, and you can go back and say in the moment, okay, that really made me very mad when that person cut me off. Why? And then maybe you have a memory about a time when something was taken away or whatever it may be. But there's a memory behind, there's a root cause to the overlying like conditions.
And that is a great tool to use. So, for me, anger is a defense mechanism. So something happens and we get angry, and we're like, okay, that made me angry. But then we have to ask, why? So if you think about whatever had just happened and you think back, when is the very first time I remember feeling like this? And try to go to the earliest memory, childhood memory, if you can, because you will have, up until your age now, you will have plenty of memories of where that situation replayed and repeated. But if you can go back to the earliest memory and you can journal that and write that, you'll find so much about why that upset you.
And I did that with belief, believing in myself. I think we talked about this actually on one of our lives. I don't remember which one, but I realized I had not believed in myself up until this point, and I asked that question: when was the first time that I accepted this into my belief structure? And I was brought back to a first memory, and then after that, when I saw it and I recognized it, I saw the pattern replay in my life up until this point. And it wasn't, it was, 5 minutes maybe, that all these things just came from that one memory. So it doesn't have to be something so structured, just start with a question and see what comes from that. And it'll take you a lot of different places, and it'll open where it'll open your perception of how you've allowed these parts to continue. And then once the realization happens, that's where you can make appropriate changes. And the more weight the issue has for you, if it's a core issue, you're going to find that maybe you looked at it once and then you go back and you look at it again, it's a different memory. It's a memory from before or after, and it's something that also has to be looked at in there.
So,
and your dad said, did you see that?
Fear is something that you put on yourself. Absolutely, because you think
I like it.
It's yourself.
Hi, Erin.
And so fear is stronger when we have no one to give that to. And I feel like Easter's playing on out throughout this whole thing. But I do feel that the whole story of Jesus was like, give your burdens to me. Like, let me take all of this to the cross. Let me help you with that, whatever it is. And we still feel like we carry our burdens ourselves, that there's no one there to help us. Nobody understands all of that. And so I love that footprints, because a lot of times when we're looking back, we're like, oh yeah, that's when I was struggling the most, and I was all by myself. And it's like, no, silly, I was carrying you. I was helping you through all of that. And so, of course, we're going to have more fear, and we're going to grow that fear on accident when we believe that there is no one who understands. And of course, there really is no one who understands, because you came here to be the flip coin. Mm-hmm. You came here with your life experience to give the world a piece of information that only you could give based on your life experience. So Melissa and I came here for different things. We wanted to fill the world with different messages. And that reminds me, Friday, we're doing a question and answer panel. We're having different practitioners from natural healing centers that are going to be present to help answer any questions. So if anyone has any questions about anything that's going on, physical, emotional, spiritual, we're asking that it's 7:00 on Friday.
7:00, yep.
To bring your questions, or you can even email us the questions ahead of time so that we can even start off talking about those. Or if you just join in and you just want to ask certain questions, or if there's someone on the panel specifically that you want to ask the question to, please ask away. Like right now, we're just realizing that I mean, we've always known, but everyone is handling this in a different way. But people need to be heard, and it is so important. And we want to give everyone a voice right now, because that's a lot of what we're doing right now is we're just talking to people. We're just talking to them. And I had someone today who picked up the supplements and I was like, you know what? I felt terrible before I talked to you, and just talking to you, oh, I feel so much better. But we're losing that right now because of all the isolation. We're not able to talk. Everyone has their own problems, and so it's hard right now to get things off of our chest, or to just have that communication still present there. And so we're hoping to really invite everyone in, share your experiences, what you've been feeling. We've been talking a lot about angels and signs from angels. So if anyone has anything that they'd like to share, we would really just love to open the floor to give everyone a chance to use their voice and to help others grow during this time, change during this time, dream during this time. My theme song here has always been All You Need Is Love by the Beatles. And so I just looked up I didn't want to misquote the lyrics, but there's nothing you can do that can't be done. There's nothing you can sing that can't be sung. Nothing you can say, but you can learn how to play the game. It's easy. Nothing you can make that can't be made. No one you can save that can't be saved. Nothing you can do, but you can learn how to be you in time. It's easy. And that is like, we have the answers. So everything that's out there is out there. The problems are out there. The solutions are out there. And even on a, real basic level, there's so many things that are being presented right now in the news. And if there's anything you question, even about transmission of this virus, you can Google back to 2006 and find out about coronavirus and how it's transmitted and all these studies. This isn't a new virus. There's always new things involved with viruses because they grow and adapt just like us. But there's so much information that's out, like we're forgetting that we have like all of these resources right now. And we can Google and find out a lot of our own information. It doesn't have to be, we don't have to blindly take any information that's being presented because it caused some type of fear in us. And now it's like, oh, we have to believe this because otherwise, blah, 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 blah. Do a little bit more research. Pray. Ask about it. Meditate on it. And then see where that brings you to in your new Google searches. Because all of your answers for you are within you.
And that's the same with the fear right now. So with everyone's fears kind of coming to light, these are not new fears. These are things that you've adapted throughout your entire life. It might feel scarier or more pressured right now because of the collective energy. But the underlying fear, the fear behind the fear, has always been there. And it's just waiting to be looked at. It's just waiting to be explored and seen for what it truly was, which was a way to help you grow and understand a little bit deeper about whatever it was, yourself or the world around you, or just exploring more ways to be compassionate.
So Monica says, for me, exercise or movement helps move the anger. Then you might follow that by being creative, journaling, art, etc. This releases your passion. And that's true. And one of the things before all this came up is I was doing a yoga class that my sister was teaching. And one of the things that came up to me was guilt. No, was it pride?
Yeah.
It was pride.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was pride. And I have a problem with the 7 deadly sins and so many things so religious that make us feel guilty. And so I had to continue on my journey to learn about pride, which is what I found out was pride is only a sin if you are feeling alone in everything. When you feel the weight of the world on your shoulders, pride, okay? Don't take it on as your own. Remember, you are never doing this alone. It will lead to too much anxiety. So if you feel the pressure on your shoulders, ask for help. Ask for divine guidance. Ask your family, your friends, whoever. Ask for help. Don't start feeling alone in all of this. That's when you're going to lose your ability to create change. Um, she said something in there that sparked me, and now I'm kind of forgetting it. So, I don't know. Thought is gone. Talk about crystals, and then I will. I'll remember it.
Okay. So, first and foremost, labradorite, always. This is a perception stone. This helps you see magic when everything seems like, what's that word? When everything seems scripted, beyond your control. Labradorite says there is magic in every moment. If you just open your eyes to see it, if you only allow it in, magic. I actually have two of them. I'm going to show you both of them. These are from the front. Okay, and then jade. These are the four that we talked about in the beginning. So
that I was holding on that I couldn't let go of until now.
Yeah, so if you're looking for calming crystals, I put these together today for me originally. I carried them all day, and then I gave them to Ronica. I have jade here. Jade is a beautiful heart crystal. I think of heart, I think of calming. I know you have, what do you think about jade? I liked what you said about it.
For me, it always reminds me of the Egyptians used to sleep on a jade pillow to clear their heads.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was a way to stop getting out of your repetitive thoughts and to allow new thoughts to come in.
And on that, we'll go with lepidolite. And lepidolite helps release old patterns. And I always, if you guys watched our angel class, we talked about lepidolite too. I always imagine it as lilac. It's got a really beautiful calming energy to it. And then howlite. Howlite, I know it's calming, but every time I think about it now, I think about it as the Jesus stone. So that's just what I think about.
I put that in her head.
Yeah, and that's what I grabbed too because I love that. So this is the Jesus stone. If you feel, that's perfect. If you feel like you're doing this alone, grab a howlite, allow Christ consciousness in to show you that you're not doing this alone. Jesus didn't do it alone. He came here to be a part of us, to show us we do this together. We are one in this. And then, of course, rose quartz. Rose quartz is the unconditional love stone. Oftentimes in that alone mindset, we don't have unconditional love for ourselves. We don't have love for our situation or the circumstances in life. And incorporating this in all of your bundles brings that perspective.
And so right now we're all going to be drawn into the emotion that is connected to, in Chinese medicine, like our weakest system. And so mine is the lungs. And so the first thing that came to me was guilt. So guilt, grief, forgiveness, letting go were things that came up. We're going to be doing a class talking about all of the emotions, and we're going to incorporate crystals and different techniques to help you uncover some of the buried emotions, because for some it's going to be anxiety and fear, for some it's going to be shame, for some it's whatever it is. It's connected to a different organ system, and there's ways to work on that physically, emotionally, and spiritually in the body. And so next week we are going to have a class to dive a little bit deeper into those emotions and techniques to help you I wanted to say release them, but it's really understand them
Mm-hmm.
and empower
Mm-hmm.
yourself with them. And I think that is like the whole message of all this is empower yourself with knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
because then you can create and co-create intentionally.
Mm-hmm. And with co-creation, we are constantly co-creating. It's our conscious awareness that dictates whether or not we will be um, attracting and allowing in that which we want or that which is of a pattern that we've not looked at. So in co-creation, bringing your awareness to your limitations and what holds you back and moving past it, understanding it, empowering the part of the story where you are the hero, that helps you bring that into your awareness, into your current understanding.
And the last thing I wanted to say is my daughter right now, they're doing all the e-learning. And so I had to read one of the books. I'm
Yes.
still reading one of the books that she had to read so I could help her with her homework. And it's Night. Um, I forget the author's name. I'm sorry.
Elliot something, isn't it?
Elsie something.
Oh, yeah.
Or but Night. If you
Mhm.
just Google Night, you'll know what it is. It's amazing, but it brought me to a lot more questions here too, because it was like, how can we go through something so horrific, something so crazy, and not change as a society? And because of the Holocaust, and that's what it's about. What really happened? What really changed? And I look at now, and I'm like, well, here are right now immigrants who are in prison and separated from their family, and I'm like, really? Like everything that happened before, how could this ever happen again after you read these people's stories and see what was done? But a lot of what I was reading from the book, and I'm so, um, gosh, I don't even know the word to use, but he was so vulnerable in writing the true story of what people were really feeling. And what like just grabbed me was there was so much guilt and shame because they feared for their lives every day. And if they lived, someone else had to die, and you couldn't even think of that because you were just, it's not even happy not to die. It was just your whole focus is on how to live to the next day, and to not even fight for someone else who was going to die. And even when it came to son and father, and not being able to stand up and fight or do anything to retaliate because the fear of dying yourself was so strong. And so there was so much of this guilt and shame, which probably has led to so many people never talking about this. It reminds me of war, too. Like, put in that moment, can you imagine what people just did to live and to survive? And of course, they don't want to talk about it, because if they actually were able to go and fight and save all these people and could tell this story like, I was never afraid and I actually did all of this, but really probably anyone who did that died, and so they were not here to hear their stories. And I remembered a memory that came up for me, and it was, I was about 6 years old, and we were all at the park with all of the neighborhood kids, and there was this car that kept circling around, and we saw it, we noticed it, and so we were joking about it and hiding underneath one of the slides, and we were like, yeah, that car keeps circling around, they're watching us. And all of a sudden a man got out of the car, and one of the kids yelled, run, run. And we all did. And I ran. And I remember I was the fastest runner of all the boys on the block. I could run so fast. And so I remember I ran. And I remember I could see my front door. And then as soon as I could see my front door, my heart just stopped. And I thought, my sister is with me. She was 2 years younger than me. And I turned around, and she was there thank God. But the first thing I thought was, how could you? How could you run like that? How dare you? Your sister was behind you. And I had so much guilt in that memory. And I realized after thinking about it at 40 years old that that was me at 6 years old. And of course, I was scared, but I couldn't get rid of the guilt. And then I kept thinking, that's why now, today, you always look back. So that's why when everyone says, stay in your home, keep social distancing, there's a part of me that says, but someone's hurting, but someone is anxious, but someone is sick. And so there's a part of me that can't help but look back and have to do what I have to do. But there was a part of me that was so embarrassed to even tell that story, to be like, oh, can you imagine? She only cared about herself and ran. She didn't think about her sister. And there's a lot of times that all of this emotional stuff keeps us from sharing these stories with others because we're consumed in our own judgment of ourselves. And that is the hell we continue to live in a lot of the times, is this place of judgment of self. And if you just sit and listen for a moment, you will see that no one judges you like that except you.
And in that, that limits co-creation because you're limiting the perspective of that part of you that is unconditional love, that would say, you were 6, you were just trying to survive, and until these parts of us are looked at years later, they will continue to be that dense, that scary, that covered, pushed under the rug. But when we open that door to look at the fear, we realize that was a part of our story. Like we said in the beginning of this, it was a part of the story that we needed to find that strength. And because of that, now you never don't look back, and even if something happened and you didn't look back, still.
And it's because of that that I have no judgment towards anyone else who tells me I got scared and I ran. In fact, there's a part of me that's like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry because I know what that feels like, to then feel guilty about that. And I know you're a good person. And I know you love everyone you were with. And so because that happened, there's no judgment on my part. In fact, there's more love and compassion for that person. And as I was reading that book, I was so thankful to say, thank you for sharing all of this, because this is what happens when we get stuck and drown in fear. We're so afraid to share these aspects of ourselves, these moments that we've had, because we're afraid of being looked at with the same judgment that we see when we look in the mirror.
And I think that's really big right now, is the self-judgment. I think that with fear is first judgment, and then acceptance and moving and change. There's something else I forgot what I was going to say with that. It was like after the first step. I'll think about it.
But because that's then where we tend to grow with it. So it's like we look at our own judgment on self, and we assume that is how the world is really looking at us, and it just gives an opportunity for that to grow stronger. And it's really not, we're missing the whole big picture here. Again, we're missing our role and our experience as a way to teach us to continue to be a messenger of love, a servant to all.
Yeah. And I remembered, it was self-judgment comes first, and then vulnerability, and then compassion, strength. But until we can lay down the judgment, we can't find that connection. Vulnerability allows us to connect together as one and say, oh my gosh, you felt like that? I have felt like that too before. I thought I was the only one. I had all of this guilt or whatever it is surrounding this part of me. But look at how beautiful it is that we can connect here in this seemingly dark place.
And that's what I would call fear then. I would say, like, oh, you're feeling alone? Like, oh, how can we get you to not feel alone?
Yeah.
Like, that's where fear gets its power, its strength, is in feeling alone in all of this, that no one understands my struggle, my story. And as soon as someone can say, you're not alone, the fear dissipates. And hi, Lynn. I don't know what LYF means. What's that mean? I don't know. So
love you forever.
Oh, okay.
Maybe. Hi, Mom.
Where's Mom? Oh, hi. All right. And yes, thank you. Question everything. Yes. Ask your questions. Please meditate. And remember that this is a two-way street all the time. Ask your question, but don't just ask your question. Then sit and listen for your answer. And your answer is just for you. This is stuff that you can't Google. You can later to get confirmation on it, but this is the stuff, if you want to know the answer right away, ask your question, then listen for your answer. Clear yourself first. Get out of that place of where you keep creating the same situation. Do a chakra meditation, ask for some Reiki, do whatever it is. And then when you're feeling clear, ask knowing you are going to be answered. Ask knowing we're co-creating. Ask knowing someone is trying so hard to talk to you and love you, and then listen. Oh, love you first. Okay. All right, everyone. So we will be doing a lot more emotional support coming up next week, and hopefully some fun classes. So we'll be putting that together this weekend. So if you're not on our constant contact email, go ahead and get onto our website and sign up for that so you know our schedule of events. And thank you, everyone, so much for watching. Love to you all.
Thank you. Okay.